The security sensors screamed 3 minutes before the human ship docked. Captain Varix of the Royal Guard stood motionless at the airlock, her forearms crossed in precise formation, breathing slow and controlled despite the chaos erupting across every comm channel in the palace. The human vessel hadn't responded to 7 hails. Protocol demanded she seal the station and alert the fleet. Instead, she watched the docking clamps engage with a pneumatic hiss that felt like a held breath releasing. The airlock door split open. A human male stumbled through, arms wrapped around a white box, face flushed red with exertion. Behind him, a human female carried a small creature. No, a child, Varix corrected herself, who clutched a stuffed animal missing one eye. Neither adult wore protective gear, neither carried visible weapons. Both looked terrified. "Please," the male gasped. "We need to see Ambassador Kavrin. It's about the cub, the Queen's cub." Varix's secondary heart skipped. She felt her scales ripple beneath her uniform. Every member of the Royal Guard knew about the cub. Queen Shrana's youngest offspring, born with a genetic defect that made her body reject synthetic nutrition. The finest medical minds across 7 star systems had tried everything. The cub was dying. The entire sovereignty held its breath, waiting for the inevitable announcement. "The ambassador sees no one without clearance," Varix said, her voice steady. "State your business." The human male's hands tightened on the box. "My name is David Chen. This is my wife, Maria. We're bakers from Earth's Colony Station. We heard about the cub's condition. We think we can help." You think..." Varix let the words hang in the air like frost. "The Queen's daughter has been examined by physicians who have studied for decades. You are merchants who mix flour." "We're not doctors," Maria said quietly. Her child had buried its face in her shoulder. "But we understand food. Real food. Organic food. Not synthesized compounds." Varix's tail twitched. A breach of protocol. These humans had no appointment, no credentials, no authorization to even speak about a royal matter. She should escort them back to their ship, file a report, let proper channels handle this presumption. But something in Maria's eyes stopped her, a desperate certainty Varix recognized from mirrors, from the faces of guards who had lost comrades, from anyone who had stood at the edge of the void and chosen to step forward anyway. "Wait here." Varix turned to the comm panel, her claws clicking against the controls. "Do not move. Do not open that box." She sent a coded message directly to Ambassador Kavrin's personal channel. 30 seconds passed. 60. The humans shifted their weight but stayed silent. Varix appreciated that. The child whispered something to its mother in a language too soft for the translator to catch. The comm chirped, "Send them to conference room 7. Kavrin's voice carried the weight of exhaustion. "Under guard." Varix gestured to 2 soldiers who materialized from alcoves, their presence so still they might have been statues. "Follow me. Keep your hands visible." They walked through corridors lined with viewing ports that showed the spiral arms of the galaxy beyond. The palace station orbited a blue giant, its light painting everything in shades of ice and shadow. Other guards watched from posts, their expressions neutral, but Varix felt their attention like pressure against her scales. Word would spread. Humans in the royal wing. A breach. Questions would follow. Conference room 7 was small, meant for private discussions rather than formal audiences. Kavrin waited inside, his elongated frame curved in the posture of deep fatigue. He was old by any species measure, his skin marked with the ceremonial scars of 400 years of service.
"You have 5 minutes," he said. "Speak."
"The Queen's daughter can't process synthetic nutrition because her body doesn't recognize it as food. Her immune system attacks it. But humans dealt with similar conditions centuries ago. We learned that sometimes the body needs what it evolved to recognize, real organic compounds, prepared in specific ways." "We have organic matter, KV, Vryn said. "Our synthesizers replicate molecular structures perfectly." "Structures, yes." Maria stepped forward. "But not processes. When you bake bread, chemical reactions occur. Proteins transform. Sugars caramelize. Living organisms, yeast, bacteria, break down compounds in ways that change their fundamental nature. You can copy the result, but you can't copy what happens during creation." Varix watched Kavrin's expression shift, saw the moment curiosity overtook protocol. The ambassador leaned forward. "What is in the box?" "A birthday cake," David said. Made with earth wheat, eggs from real chickens, milk from actual cows, organic vanilla extract, chocolate from cacao plants, and something we hope might help, enzymes from the fermentation process, pre-digested sugars, compounds created by living biological processes, not assembled molecule by molecule. The cub's birthday was 2 weeks ago. Kavian Rin said softly. We know. We've been traveling 3 weeks to get here. Maria's voice cracked. We have a daughter too, she's 6. When we heard about the cub, we had to try. Silence filled the room like water rising. Varix understood what hung unspoken in the air. These humans had abandoned their business, spent their savings on a 3-week journey through hyperspace, all to deliver baked goods to a dying alien child they had never met. The logic was absurd. The sentiment was incomprehensible by sovereignty standards, where actions followed chains of duty and obligation, not emotion. Yet Kavrin reached for the box. His hands trembled slightly as he lifted the lid. Inside, wrapped in cooling preservatives, sat a small cake decorated with purple frosting and sugar flowers. It looked primitive, imperfect. The frosting had patterns that showed hand application rather than machine precision. If this harms the cub, Kavrin said, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority, you will face the consequences. We understand, David said. Prepare the medical bay. I am bringing something to test under full quarantine protocols. Alert the specialists. He paused, then added, Inform them I am acting on my own authority. If this fails, the responsibility is mine alone. Varix watched the ambassador gather the box with the care of someone handling sacred relics. She had served for 30 years, had seen Kavrin navigate impossible diplomatic situations, broker peace between warring systems, and maintain composure through crises that would have shattered lesser beings. She had never seen him take a risk like this, never seen him step so far outside protocol based on nothing but desperate hope. Captain Varix, Kavrin said as he moved toward the door, these humans are now under royal protection. See to their quarters. Ensure their comfort. They are not to leave this station until we know the result. Yes, Ambassador, Varix saluted, fist to chest. As Kavrin left, Varix turned to the humans. Their daughter had fallen asleep against Maria's shoulder, trusting and vulnerable. David's hands shook slightly, adrenaline finally catching up to courage. They looked small standing in this room designed for beings twice their size, fragile, in a station built to withstand the void. Follow me, Varix said, her tone softer than before. I will show you to guest quarters. They walked in silence through corridors that hummed with the station's heartbeat, past windows that framed infinity, toward an uncertain future that now rested on the simple act of baking something with love. The medical bay existed in a state of controlled chaos. Chief Physician Tornak moved through the quarantine chamber with the precision of someone who had spent decades studying impossible problems, his 6 fingers dancing across holographic displays that showed molecular structures breaking down into incomprehensible data streams. Behind the reinforced glass, the cake sat on a sterile platform, subjected to every scanning technology known to the sovereignty. Varix stood at attention in the observation room, watching. Kavrin paced, his movement betraying an anxiety the ambassador rarely showed. The humans sat on a bench, their daughter awake now, pressing her small hands against the glass and asking questions in that peculiar way young creatures did, as if the universe owed them explanations. The organic compounds are unlike anything synthesized, Tornak announced, his voice filtering through the comm. The molecular bonds show evidence of biological transformation. Heat-induced changes, bacterial action. It's primitive chemistry, but complex in unexpected ways. Can the cub consume it safely? Kavrin's question cut through the technical analysis. Tornak's silence stretched 10 seconds. 20. I cannot guarantee safety, but the compounds show potential bioavailability. The pre-broken protein chains might bypass the immune response that rejects our synthesized nutrition. He paused. If you're asking whether it could work, the answer is possibly. If you're asking whether I recommend attempting this, the answer is I don't have enough data. Everyone turned to look at her. She stood, meeting Kavrin's gaze with steady determination. You're asking if it's worth the risk, if trying something unconventional is better than accepting the inevitable. You speak of things you cannot understand, the political implications alone. I understand watching your child suffer, Maria interrupted. Varix tensed, ready to intervene, but Kavrin raised a hand. I understand being willing to try anything, even something that seems impossible, because the alternative is unthinkable. That's not political, that's universal. The ambassador's shoulders sagged slightly, a crack in his controlled demeanor. The Queen has not left the cub's side in 48 hours. The royal physicians have prepared her for the end. I cannot walk into that room with baked goods from strangers and suggest we abandon established medical protocol for hope. Then don't suggest it, David said. Ask the Queen. Tell her what we brought and why. Let her decide. Varix watched KVR Vrin wrestle with the choice. Protocol was absolute in the sovereignty. Chain of command, proper channels, established procedures. These structures had maintained stability across hundreds of worlds for millennia. What the humans suggested was chaos. It was also the only path forward that didn't end in a small grave and a grieving empire. Captain Varix, Kavrin said finally, accompany me to the Royal Medical Suite. Bring the humans. Physician Tornak, prepare a sample for analysis. Small portion, minimal contamination risk. They moved through the station's deepest corridors, where only those with highest clearance could pass. Guards stood at intervals, their presence absolute. Varix felt the weight of what was happening, how this moment balanced on the edge of catastrophe or miracle, with no middle ground visible. The Royal Medical Suite was silent except for the soft beep of monitoring equipment. The room smelled of recycled air and the particular sterility of places where life fought against death. Queen Shrana sat beside a small bed where her daughter lay, tubes and sensors attached to skin that looked translucent with illness. The cub was tiny, perhaps equivalent to a human 5-year-old, her breathing shallow and labored. Varix had never been this close to royalty before. She had seen Queen Shrana in broadcasts, at ceremonies, always commanding and powerful. This version of the Queen was different, diminished by grief, her regal bearing stripped down to the fundamental desperation of a mother watching her child die. Kavrin approached and bowed low. Your Majesty, I bring an unconventional request. The Queen's eyes, dark and ancient, fixed on the ambassador. Kavrin, in 30 years you have never disturbed me without purpose. Speak. Kavrin gestured to the humans. These individuals traveled from Earth colony stations carrying organic food they believed might help the cub. I had it analyzed. The compounds show potential to bypass her immune response. Queen Shrana's gaze moved to David and Maria, then to their daughter who hid behind her mother's legs. You are bakers. Yes, Your Majesty, David said, his voice steady despite obvious fear. And you think baked goods can succeed where the finest medical minds have failed. We think, Maria said carefully, that sometimes bodies need what they recognize as real, as natural. Our daughter had severe allergies as an infant. Nothing synthesized worked. Only foods prepared the old way, with living ingredients, helped her body learn to process nutrition without attacking itself. The Queen looked back at her daughter. The cub's chest rose and fell in a rhythm that seemed to weaken with each breath. My physicians tell me she has perhaps 3 days remaining. They have prepared comfort measures. They have suggested I say goodbye. We're not suggesting false hope, David said. Just one more possibility before the end. Varix watched the Queen's face, saw calculation and desperation war behind those ancient eyes. This was a being who commanded fleets, whose words shaped policy across star systems, reduced to the same impossible choice any parent faced when medicine offered no answers. Show me, the Queen said. Tornak entered carrying a small container. I've isolated a portion, minimal quantity, strictly monitored introduction. If her system rejects it, we can intervene immediately. The cub stirred, her eyes opening partially. Her voice emerged as a whisper. Mother?
Queen Shrana took her daughter's hand.
Hush, little flame. Rest. Today my birthday again? The cub asked. Did you make it come back? Varix saw tears form in those royal eyes, saw grief naked and absolute. No, my heart. But someone brought you a gift, a cake from far away. The cub's eyes widened slightly. Like in the stories? Real cake, the Queen confirmed, looking at Tornak. Proceed. Carefully. The physician prepared the sample with meticulous precision, creating a small portion mixed with neutralizing agents in case of adverse reaction. He approached the bed with reverence, offering a spoonful that looked absurdly small against the weight of everything hanging on this moment. The cub tried to lift her head. Her mother supported her with infinite gentleness. The spoon touched her lips. She tasted, and her expression transformed. Surprise, then something like wonder. Sweet, she whispered. Different sweet. Not medicine sweet. Do you want more? The Queen asked, her voice breaking on the words. The cub nodded. Another small spoonful. Then another. Everyone in the room watched monitoring displays, seeing data streams that meant nothing to Varix but everything to Tornak, whose expression shifted from clinical observation to cautious interest. No immediate rejection, the physician said. Heart rate stabilizing. Immune markers unchanged. She's processing it. The cub consumed perhaps 3 spoonfuls before exhaustion claimed her again. She slipped back into sleep, but her breathing seemed different. Not stronger, necessarily, but steadier. Queen Shrana stood, her full height imposing even in grief. She looked at the humans with an intensity that made Varix's scales ripple. If she worsens, if this hastens her death, I will hold you responsible. We understand, Maria said, but if she improves, the queen continued, if your simple cake succeeds where science failed, you will have given me back my daughter. There is no gift in the galaxy that equals such a thing. We just want her to have a chance, David said. Every child deserves that. The queen nodded slowly. Kavrin, these humans will remain on station under royal protection. They will have whatever resources they require. If the cub continues to tolerate this food, they will prepare more. Physician Tornak monitored her continuously. I want data every hour. Yes, Your Majesty, both responded simultaneously. The queen turned back to her daughter's bed, dismissing everyone else with her posture. Varix led the humans out, back through corridors that felt different now, charged with possibility that hadn't existed an hour before. What happens now? Their daughter asked, her voice small in the vast hallway. We wait, Varix said, surprising herself with gentleness. And hope. Varix maintained her post outside the guest quarters, watching as David and Maria alternated between pacing and sitting in stunned silence. Their daughter drew pictures on a datapad, seemingly unbothered by the weight of what her parents had set in motion. Updates came in intervals that felt both too frequent and not enough. The cub had woken twice more, asking for the sweet food. She consumed small amounts each time. Her vital signs showed marginal improvement. Not dramatic, but consistent. The immune markers that had spiked at every previous feeding attempt remained stable. Word spread through the station despite attempts at discretion. Guards whispered about humans and cake. Diplomats from other species requested audiences with Kavarin, sensing something significant happening behind closed doors. The news networks began running speculation pieces about activity at the Royal Medical Suite, though no official announcements had been made. Varix received a comm from her superior officer. Captain, what's the situation? Uncertain, Varix replied, keeping her voice neutral. The ambassador is managing a delicate matter. I'm hearing rumors about unauthorized humans accessing royal facilities. The humans are under royal protection by KVRN's direct order. All protocols have been followed. Your record is exemplary, Captain. Don't let sentiment compromise your judgment. The connection ended. Varix stood straighter, aware that her career might hang on the outcome of this gamble she hadn't made, but had chosen to support. She could have stopped the humans at the airlock, could have followed strict protocol, could have protected herself from the consequences of hope. She chose not to regret her decision. On the second day, Queen Shrana summoned Kavrin, the humans, and Varix to the medical suite. The cub was sitting up in bed, supported by pillows, her eyes brighter than before. Not healthy, not yet, but alive in a way that defied the death sentence pronounced 48 hours earlier. She has requested more cake, the queen said. Not the portions Physician Tornak prepared. Actual cake. She wants to know what it tastes like without medical intervention. We'd need a proper kitchen, Maria said. Organic ingredients. Time to bake it fresh. You will have everything required, the queen said. Captain Varix will assist you. Yes, Your Majesty. The station's diplomatic kitchens had facilities for preparing food for visiting dignitaries from species with unique dietary requirements. Varix watched as David and Maria transformed the sterile space into something that smelled impossibly warm and sweet. They moved with practiced efficiency, measuring ingredients, mixing compounds by hand rather than programming synthesizers. Why not use the automated systems? Varix asked, genuinely curious. They could replicate your exact specifications. Because this isn't about specifications, Maria said, whisking eggs with a tool that seemed primitive compared to available technology. It's about the process, the attention, the care. When you make food for someone you love, that energy goes into it. Maybe it's not measurable, but it's real. Varix watched David fold chocolate into batter with movements that held almost ritualistic precision. You believe emotion affects molecular structure? We're making this cake for a specific child who's fighting for her life. That's different from programming a machine to assemble ingredients. It's the difference between a gift and a transaction. It contradicted everything Varix understood about chemistry and physics. Yet watching them work, seeing the deliberate care in every action, she found herself wondering if rationality was the only measure of truth. The cake baked for 37 minutes. The smell filled the kitchen, sweet, rich, complex, in ways Varix's translator couldn't quite capture. When Maria pulled it from the oven, the surface had risen perfectly, golden brown with subtle cracks that showed heat, and chemistry had worked their transformation. They decorated it simply, purple frosting to match the cub's favorite color, which they'd learned from overheard conversations with medical staff. Sugar flowers arranged in a pattern that suggested rather than depicted. Maria piped words across the top in careful script. "Happy birthday, little flame." Guards stood aside without question now. Word had spread that the cub was improving. The entire station held its breath, waiting to see if hope was justified or cruel. The cub's eyes went wide when she saw the whole cake. "For me? For you," Queen Sharana confirmed. "These kind people made it especially for you." Her body accepted it without rejection. The data stream showed continued stability. After the third piece, she asked her mother, "Can I share it?" The Queen's voice caught. "With whom, little flame?"
"And Captain Varix. And the doctors."
"Everyone who helped." The cub looked at the cake with reverence. "It's too good to eat alone. That's what makes it special." Queen Sharana stood absolutely still for a long moment. Then she did something Varix had never seen in 3 decades of service. The Queen of the Sovereignty, ruler of 700 worlds, knelt beside her daughter's bed and wept, not from sorrow. From recognition that her child, who had been hours from death 2 days ago, now wanted to share her birthday cake because joy meant nothing if experienced alone. The transformation was complete, not just in body but in spirit. "Yes," the Queen said when she could speak again, "we will all share it together." They sat in that medical suite, breaking protocol and precedent, eating cake with small plates and utensils. The cub managed 2 pieces before exhaustion claimed her, but it was the exhaustion of children after celebrations, not the surrender of dying things. Queen Sharana approached David and Maria as medical staff settled the cub for rest. "You gave me back my daughter. I cannot repay such a gift with currency or favors. What you have done transcends debt." "We don't want payment," Maria said. "We just wanted to help. Nevertheless, you will have it." The Queen's voice carried absolute authority now. "By royal decree, I am establishing the Organic Nutrition Research Initiative. You will lead it. Every species in the sovereignty deserves access to real food prepared with care, not synthesized approximations. You will teach us what you know. We will learn what we have forgotten." "Your Majesty," Kuvrin interjected carefully, "such an initiative would require tremendous resources. There will be opposition from those invested in current systems. Then they will learn to adapt," the Queen said flatly. "My daughter lives because 2 humans from a colony station understood something our greatest minds missed, that life requires life, not simulation of it. That truth will change how we feed our people." She looked at David and Maria. "If you accept." "We accept," they said together. The Queen nodded. "Captain Varix, you facilitated this miracle through wisdom and courage. You will head security for the new initiative. Coordinate with KVRN on implementation." Varix saluted, her heart's pounding. "It will be my honor, Your Majesty." As they left the medical suite, Varix walked beside the humans and their daughter. The child looked up at her with curious eyes. "Captain Varix? Why do you have 4 arms?" "Evolution," Varix said. "My species developed extra limbs for climbing trees on our homeworld." "That's cool. I only have 2 arms, but I can draw pretty good." "They are excellent." Such simple pleasure from simple praise. Varix realized she was smiling, an expression she rarely allowed on duty. "Captain," David said quietly, "thank you for letting us try. You could have turned us away." "I almost did," Varix admitted. "Protocol dictated it, but something in your eyes convinced me that following rules mattered less than following conscience." "Sometimes the right thing looks wrong from the outside," Maria said. "Yes," Varix agreed. "I am learning that truth has many forms." The news broke across the galaxy within hours of the Queen's announcement. The story spread like fire through hydrogen. Humans bringing a birthday cake that saved a dying royal child, a queen who decreed revolution in how the sovereignty approached nutrition, a simple act of compassion that changed the course of history. Media from 1,000 worlds requested interviews. Scientists demanded access to the research, politicians positioned themselves to support or oppose the initiative. The humans at the center of the storm remained focused on what mattered, helping the cub grow stronger, teaching others their methods, building something lasting from one moment of desperate hope. Varix watched it all unfold from her new position. She coordinated security for kitchens being established on stations throughout the sovereignty. She vetted staff, arranged transportation for organic ingredients, ensured that humans willing to teach their craft could do so safely. The work was demanding, complex, and utterly unlike anything she had trained for. She had never been more certain of her purpose. 3 months later, Queen Shrana hosted a formal ceremony in the Grand Hall. The cub stood beside her mother, still small and fragile but undeniably alive, her skin showing color that hadn't existed before organic nutrition restored what medicine alone could not. Ambassadors from every member species filled the chamber, witnessing as the queen awarded honors to those who had served with courage and wisdom. Vren received the Star of Merit for leadership under unprecedented circumstances. Physician Tornak was recognized for adapting medical practice to incorporate new understanding, and David and Maria stood before the assembled galaxy, simple bakers who had changed everything, as the Queen bestowed upon them the highest civilian honor the sovereignty could grant. "You reminded us," Queen Shrana said, her voice carrying through the hall, "that sophistication without wisdom is meaningless. That technology cannot replace care, that sometimes the greatest solutions come from the smallest gestures made with the largest hearts." She paused, looking at the humans with genuine warmth. "You saved my daughter. In doing so, you saved us all from forgetting what truly sustains life." The ceremony ended with traditional music and shared food, real food, prepared by human bakers who had trained under David and Maria, distributed to every being present. The symbolism was deliberate and powerful. The sovereignty, which had prided itself on efficiency and technological supremacy, now celebrated the primitive act of cooking as revolutionary science. Varix stood at her post, watching the celebration, feeling the weight of how one decision at an airlock had cascaded into transformation. She saw the cub laughing with other children, saw David and Maria's daughter making friends with young beings from species she'd never known existed, saw hope made manifest in the simple sharing of cake. Her comm chimed, "A message from her former superior officer. You made the right call, Captain. Sometimes the best way to follow orders is to know when to break them." Varix smiled and sent a reply. "Sometimes the best protocol is recognizing when protocol fails to serve what matters most." That night, after the ceremony concluded, Varix found herself in one of the new organic kitchens. Maria was there, teaching a group of young sovereignty citizens how to braid dough for bread. The students were clumsy but earnest, their hands learning movements that had fed humans for millennia. "Captain," Maria said warmly, "come to learn to bake? Or simply to understand better what changed everything?" Maria smiled. It wasn't the cake that changed everything. It was everyone's willingness to believe it could matter. That's the real recipe. Hope, courage, and the willingness to try something impossible because the alternative is unacceptable. Varix watched the students work, saw dough transform under their inexpert hands, saw the pride in their faces when they produced something imperfect but real. She thought about her career, her training, all the protocols she had memorized and followed. None of them had prepared her for this moment. Standing in a kitchen, watching bread rise, understanding that salvation often wore unexpected faces. "I would like to learn," Varix said finally, "if you will teach me." "Always," Maria said. "That's what this is all about."
Teaching each other.
Building something better than what we had before. And so Captain Varix, decorated officer of the Royal Guard, began learning to bake bread. Her 4 hands proved surprisingly adept at kneading dough. The rhythm was meditative, the process transformative. By the time she pulled her first loaf from the oven, imperfect, uneven, but undeniably real, she understood what the humans had brought to the sovereignty. Not just food, not just hope, but the recognition that life was messy and organic and could not be synthesized into perfection, that sometimes the best solutions were old ones, forgotten in the rush toward progress. That caring for others meant getting your hands dirty, taking risks, believing in impossible things. The bread cooled on the counter. Varix broke it open, steam rising from the interior. She tasted it and understood, finally, completely, why a simple birthday cake could shock the galaxy. Because it was made with love. Because love could not be programmed or simulated. Because in the end, despite all their technology and sophistication, beings across the stars needed the same thing: to know that someone cared enough to create something just for them. The Queen's daughter lived. The sovereignty transformed. And 2 bakers from Earth colony stations reminded the galaxy of a truth so fundamental it had almost been forgotten: that the greatest gift anyone can give is their time, their attention, their care, expressed through the simple act of making something with their own hands. In the grand scope of galactic history, it was a small thing. A birthday cake, a dying child, a desperate gamble. But small things, given at the right moment, can shift the course of stars. And sometimes the most human thing, the act of baking something sweet for a suffering child, is exactly what the universe needs to remember why life matters at all,